Today, I'm gonna go over something that I think has become sort of a problem. Assassin's Creed has given us one of the most iconic protagonists in gaming history. Ezio, Altair, Edward, Bayek. Characters we didn't just play as, we basically lived as. But over the years, Ubisoft has kept trying something different. Dual protagonists, multiple playable characters. And now, once again, with Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ubisoft returned to that idea, but in a very different way. So today, I wanted to sort of talk about Assassin's Creed and the big dual protagonist problem. Why it keeps coming back, and whether Ubisoft has actually learned anything from it. Now, I'm not trying to say that dual protagonists are bad. Ubisoft has clearly been experimenting, trying to evolve how Assassin's Creed tells its stories, from Syndicate, then to Odyssey, to Valhalla, and now Shadows as well. Each attempt has had a sort of different structure, a different goal, but they all ran into that same core issue, that Assassin's Creed is built around identity. Who you are, what you believe, and how the world sort of reacts to you. When that identity is unclear or somewhat divided, the entire experience starts to crumble. Think of it like this. When Assassin's Creed focuses on one protagonist, everything aligns around them. The city reflects their mindset, the story mirrors their growth, the music evolves with their journey. Ezio, I think, is the easiest example. In AC2, he's youthful and reckless. In Brotherhood, he's confident and hardened. In Revelations, he's reflective and tired. The world changes because Ezio changes. But let's move away from Altair and Ezio for a second. I think it's a little unfair to use them since they had multiple games to sort of grow. Okay then, let's talk about Bayek. What made Bayek so effective? It wasn't just his performance. It was focus. Yeah, sure, Aya existed alongside him, but the core story was still Bayek's. His grief, the death of his son, his obsession with revenge, his refusal to back down against the order. Because we stayed with Bayek that entire time, we fully invested in him. We upgraded just one character. We saw side stories through only one perspective, and we explored all of ancient Egypt as if he was sort of our guide. That level of immersion is incredibly hard to maintain when your focus is very split. Sticking with a single character throughout the entire game allows you to emotionally attach yourself to that one person through both good and bad times, and without the story shifting your focus away from that person's growth by switching characters. I think there is a very big split focus problem. This is where dual protagonists really run into trouble. When you split focus, no single character gets enough time to breathe. Instead of one complete arc, you often get two half arcs, less emotional payoff, less attachment. You're constantly switching perspectives just as you're settling into one. And in a franchise built entirely on immersion, that really matters. The only way dual protagonists truly work, narratively at least, is when the story is told fully from one perspective and then fully from another. But then that usually requires replaying the entire game. And let's be honest, most players don't want to do that. That model works sort of better in TV than in games. In Assassin's Creed, constant perspective switching just breaks the flow. Let's go over the games that Assassin's Creed has introduced dual protagonists in. I think Syndicate was Ubisoft's first real attempt at dual protagonists. Jacob and Evie Fry. On paper, it sounds great. Evie, a focused, stealth-oriented, deeply committed to the Creed person. And then there's Jacob, impulsive, combat-heavy, and often somebody who ignores the bigger picture. That contrast should have worked, but in practice, Jacob dominates the entire story's momentum. Evie is frequently sidelined. Their arcs rarely fully converge. Instead of sharpening each other's development, they sort of just compete for screen time. Me personally, I actually liked Evie a lot, and that's sort of the frustrating part. She had real potential, but she just never got the space to fully develop in the story. By the way, I like Jacob and his jokes too, but Evie was a better assassin. And so here we have the result of Ubisoft's first experiment. Two decent characters instead of one great one. Then we move on to Odyssey. Odyssey sort of takes a different approach. You get to choose Alexios or Cassandra, but the story remains largely the same. But then this creates a new problem. The protagonist feels interchangeable. Dialogue becomes very generic. Character identity weakens. Cassandra works better because of performance, but structurally, The game isn't written for a character, it's written around choice. Valhalla doubles down on this issue. Dude, is Eivor a male or female? Which choices are canon? What's the correct version of the story? For a franchise so deeply tied to lore, this is a major problem. Choice-based storytelling just weakens Assassin's Creed when it affects the main narrative. Side content? Fine. Cosmetics? Go ahead, go wild. But the core story should be canon from the very start. When fans have to ask which version counts, something's already gone very wrong. I just realized that I've essentially just explained the Yakuza series. If you haven't played the Yakuza series before, just know that the side missions can get pretty insane. Half of them don't even make sense. You do some wild stuff, you have a bunch of choices you can make, but the main story is set in stone. And it doesn't matter because the players still get a choice in the side stuff, but you leave the main story to the developers and let them cook. Lastly, we have the newest edition, Shadows. I think Shadows takes a very different approach. Instead of two similar characters sharing the same role, we get two fundamentally different protagonists. We have Naue, stealth, speed, and classic assassin gameplay. And then we have Yasuke, strength, combat, direct confrontation. Now this isn't just a narrative split, it's a gameplay identity split. On the surface, this feels like Ubisoft is learning from Syndicate. The characters aren't competing for the same space anymore. They're designed to excel in different situations. But then this introduced a brand new risk. When protagonists are mechanically separated like this, the game starts to feel less like one identity and more like two playstyles stitched together. So now the question becomes, who is the real Assassin's Creed experience? Who does the story actually belong to? If one character feels more authentic to the Creed than the other, we're right back where we started, just in a new form. Shadows might avoid Syndicate's imbalance, but now it risks creating a thematic imbalance instead. So why does this keep happening? Across Syndicate, Odyssey, Valhalla, and now in Shadows, the pattern is clear. Ubisoft keeps returning to dual protagonists because they want broader appeal, they want gameplay variety, and they want to modernize the formula. But Assassin's Creed doesn't thrive on variety alone. It thrives on commitment. Commitment to one perspective, one philosophy, and one journey. Shadows might actually have been the closest Ubisoft has come, but for it to truly work, it needs one unified theme, clear narrative ownership, and a reason both characters exist beyond just gameplay. Not two protagonists sharing screen time, but two perspectives serving the same core message. So what have we sort of learned? Assassin's Creed's dual protagonist problem has never been about ambition, it's about identity. Syndicate split the story, Odyssey and Valhalla just diluted the character, and Shadows just split the experience itself. So whether it succeeds or not comes down to one single question. Does Assassin's Creed finally know who it wants you to be again? Because let's be honest, Syndicate's story was weak. Odyssey felt promising but fell flat. Valhalla was bloated beyond reason, and AC Shadow's story just felt unfinished. And they all shared one thing in common. Hey man, if you enjoyed this breakdown, please consider subscribing. It genuinely helps support this channel. And let me know in the comments, do you think Assassin's Creed Shadows finally got dual protagonists right? Or is the series just better off focusing on one character again? This has been Hassassini here, and I hope I'll see you guys all in the next one.